I hope the thing about the face coverings in this episode doesn't go misunderstood. So let me make it clear. It's an innocent segment about a child wanting to wear balaclavas just like the IRA used to. Now that sounds bad at first, but you haven't heard the segment yet. It's about a child wanting to hide the inside of its face from the world because it can't see the inside of its face. So why should anyone else see the inside of their face? So it's not about any religion who does face coverings. And of course you're thinking now, some of you are thinking, oh, this fella, he's worried he might offend the face covering people. Just don't want to be misunderstood, that's all. Hard enough to understand this podcast. You have to listen to this voice for a start. The Americans have no idea what I'm talking about. And Irish people think I'm putting on a fake accent to sound more Irish. I'm misunderstood enough on this podcast without having people think that I'm saying something about religious face coverings that I'm not. Last week, I did a cold open that started with, I've already had a piss, somewhat based in fact. It wasn't completely fictional. I had already had a piss. And a lot of the things that I said that came out of that statement were accurate or based loosely on reality. So they were inspired by reality. I think that's good. But today I have already had a piss. In fact, I've had 2 pisses since I started recording because it's taking longer than usual today. So we're finding it difficult to get going. But don't worry, we'll get going. I know I said that last week too. And I was right though. I got going last week. So don't be prejudging me just because I do the... I don't even know what I'm planning to say here. I'm basically just trying to force myself to do another cold open because I like the one I did last. But I see now I can't just come on and say, last week I did a cold open involving telling myself that I'd already had a piss. Can't just back reference that in the next one. That's like something you expect on Breaking Bad or something. They show someone... Oh no, it's not. They don't do that on Breaking Bad. Do they even have pissing on Breaking Bad? Surely they must have. They show people getting brutally murdered. And they show people doing drugs and they show people manufacturing drugs. Surely at Christ they show people pissing every now and then, or at least make references to pissing. Do they? I'm going to find some place where you can search through full episode synopsis of every episode of Breaking Bad. I'm going to find any references to pissing. Because I'll bet you there probably isn't. And there's a reason for that. People think pissing is offensive. Too offensive, even for a non-basic cable show in America on one of those channels that thinks it's risky. Risqué. Is it risqué they call it? I think it's risk. Is that what they call it? You're not allowed to say risky because people just think you're talking about crossing the road at a red light. You have to say risqué. I think it's R-I-S-K. R-I-S-K. Oh, feck. I've forgotten how to say the letter S. It's R-I-S-K-A-Y. That's how they say it, except they don't spell it out like that. But you know damn well when they say risqué, you know damn well that's how they would spell it if they're writing it down. If they were in any way competent, I know it's ironic to say if they were in any way competent, they'd spell it that way, which is a complete bastardization of the word risky. The competent thing to do is to spell it incorrectly. But no, it makes sense. They'd be spelling it somewhat phonetically and somewhat based on the original spelling of risky. There's nothing wrong with phonetic. Phonetic spelling has its uses. Into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head. We've a lot to get on with today. Items that need to be attended to. Issues that need to be addressed. Topics. Oh, topics. We've got lots and lots of topics. We're positively booming to the seams with topics. We've got topics coming out of this face that I'm looking at. Well, I'm not looking at it right now. I'm looking out of this face right now. It's the most prominent thing in my vision at the moment, except I can't see it because my eyes are bulging out through the 2 eye holes. So despite my entire frontage being covered in this face, I can't see it. It's like if you put a bag over someone's head and you expect them to be able to see the bag. No, it doesn't work like that. Same is true of a face. Other people can see the face, but you can't. You can't see the face. It's a fucking ridiculous system. And that's why some children wish that they had eyes in the back of their head when they're fantasizing about stuff like that. They think, oh, we should all have eyes in the back of our head. But then they also think we should be invisible and we should be able to fly and we should have superpowers like Superman and we should all be able to drive cars when we're 4 and go around going, vroom, 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 look at me, I'm driving a car, and then crash it into people on the carpet. No, you don't listen to everything your child wants. If your child wants to be able to see their own face, that's not something you grant them. Well, I suppose you could introduce it to the concept of mirrors or cameras. Well, if your child wants to be able to see its own face from the inside, that's not a thing. I suppose you could tell it to close its eyelids and say, look, you can see the inside of your eyelids, isn't that great? And they'll say, no, it's not. It's not great at all. That's shit. You're a shit parent. You're of no use to me. I'll be better off without you in my life. Get out of my life, parent. That's what the child would say to you. They'd say, get out of my life. I want no more of your crap in here. The inside of my eyelids. For Christ's sake, that's like fobbing me off with... That's like if I tell Santa Claus I want a space rocket to go to the moon and you try and fob me off with a Lego airport. It's my face. If I want to be able to see the inside of it, I should be allowed to do that. And you and the adult world should be able to facilitate me in that endeavour. And not fob me off with shit like mirrors and cameras. No, figure out how to let me see the inside of my face or else I'm never going to let anyone else see the outside of my face. Because you'll tell the same children during an educational class, you have bodily autonomy over yourself. And they take that to mean that if someone else asks to see your face, you should be able to say, no, I can't see my face, so why should you be allowed to see it? No, I want to wear a balaclava. Until you adults invent some way around this, I'm going to wear a balaclava for the rest of my life. Maybe I'll join the IRA. They used to wear balaclavas, if I remember rightly. Or maybe that was a stereotype, I don't know. As a child, I always thought of the IRA as going around in balaclavas with guns and things. They go around shooting people, or sometimes they'd have a gun and they'd point the gun at a bomb. Because they had these amateur bombs that they'd make, and sometimes they wouldn't go off, so I presume sometimes they'd take out their gun that they kept just for that purpose and they'd point the gun at the bomb and shoot the bomb to make it explode. I presume that's what they did anyway. They were kind of an amateur paramilitary organisation. They used to go around shooting and killing people and making these bombs. You're probably not supposed to talk about what you make bombs out of on podcasts. Well, that's fine. I have no idea how you make a bomb. I have no idea, unless you're talking about a water bomb. I think a water bomb, you just get a bag and you fill it with water and you throw it at another child. And then the other child, presumably nowadays, says, that's a fucking terrible waste of plastic. Some fish is going to inhale that plastic a few weeks from now at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And the fish is going to choke on the plastic. And then the fish is going to be dead and the plastic is going to be inside the fish. And then it's going to end up on your McDonald's filet-o-fish sandwich the next Tuesday fortnight. And then it's going to go down into your digestive system. And then it'll go out again through the toilets. A couple of days after that, it'll go down. The plastic will go down into the sewage system, come out in an ocean somewhere, and then the oceans will be full of plastic again. And then a fish will eat that plastic. So it'll be inside its second fish in less than a fortnight. And then what? Well, the cycle starts all over again. Mightn't necessarily be a McDonald's filet-o-fish. I don't mean to pick on McDonald's. Fish can come from anywhere. Might be one of those fish fingers that people make for their children. I understand there's adults who like to make fish fingers and put them in a sandwich, which I find disgusting. Fish fingers have no place on bread. For one thing, they're made with breadcrumbs, so they're already inbred. If I was into puns, that would be a good one. Inbred. Suffice to say, don't be putting plastic in your fish sandwich. If you put plastic in your fish sandwich, they use that against you when you ask for a straw. They'll say, no, I can't give you a straw because you put plastic in this fish sandwich a couple of weeks ago, and now it's going in and out of fish and in and out of our digestive systems. And it's going to have a half-life of 8 billion years. It's going to be like Chernobyl. It's going to be 8 billion years of this shit. just going to be there forever. And if there's one thing this planet can't handle, it's a bit of plastic going around in a fish's digestive system forever. It's just not cut out for that shit. We can handle some dinosaurs roaming the earth for 150 million years. We can handle nuclear war and hundreds and thousands of years of humans doing all sorts of crap. But one thing I can't handle is a bit of plastic inside a fish. That's the end of times. That's what that is. I don't mean to sound cynical about it. I'm not cynical about that stuff at all. I'm sure it's perfectly reasonable to need to get rid of all the plastic out of the fishes. Plastic has no place inside a fish. Unless we get to the stage, which hopefully we will someday, where medical science has advanced so far that we're willing to operate on fish to need a kidney replacement or something. We'll give them a new one made out of plastic. That will be a point in history when it would be a good thing to be putting plastic inside of fishes. Although then you have the problem when you eventually eat the fish now, it's got a plastic kidney inside it. Maybe they'll make a new type of plastic that's edible. Although I would argue that all plastic is edible. Anything is edible, you just have to eat it. Maybe you mean digestible. Is that what you mean? I suppose that's the thing. Everything isn't digestible. Everything can be passed through your system. It's not digestible. It comes out unharmed, basically, if it's undigestible, which apparently is a bad thing. For something to pass through your system and come out unharmed is considered a bad thing. Why that's the case, I don't know. As something passing through your system coming out unharmed is considered a bad thing. Said, oh Christ, that bit of plastic has gone through you undigested and has come out unharmed. What are we going to do now? Well, we're going to gather it up. Well, maybe not. We'll let it go into the sewage system. We'll have some sort of automated system that separates the undigested plastic from everything else. And then we'll use it to make plastic straws like we used to have in the old days. That's what we'll do. We'll recycle the plastic from the sewers and use it to make plastic straws that we can all enjoy guilt-free because it's literally come out of our own bodies. Wouldn't that be a perfect solution? I'm not saying it would work. I'm just trying to spark some new ideas in new young people. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand any of this. I'm just an ideas person. I put out these half-baked ideas in the hope that some young person listening to this surrounded by pipettes and bigorettes and bottles of dry ice, thinking, oh, what can I do in here that'll change the world? Well, there's one for you. Now nothing. Now nothing. That's that. That's it. That's the idea. Do with it what you will.
Into your head.
Two cats walk into a bar. One of the cats goes straight up to the bar counter and says, hello, can I have a packet of your finest cigarettes, please? And the man behind the bar says, oh, I'm sorry, we're not allowed to sell that brand anymore. In fact, we're not allowed to put brands on them at all. You're only allowed to ask for cigarettes, and I'm only allowed to give you cigarettes. I have to get them from a box that's buried in the floor underneath the safe where I keep the money. There's a box underneath that, and that's where we keep the cigarettes. They're not in packaging. You're not allowed to have packaging anymore. But you're also not allowed to sell loose cigarettes. So we keep them in a non-packaging box. I suppose it is a packaging, really. It's a box with no shape. Essentially, it's a bag. So the cigarettes come in a bag with no branding on it, of course. It's just a picture of a dead person on the front of the bag. Of course, that's the problem. It's in a bag, so it gets all crumpled up. So the picture could look like anything. But a picture of a dead person on the cigarette bag, but the bag is all scrunched up, that could look like anything. That could look like someone goes to a psychiatrist and they give them a test. They say, I'm going to show you some pictures now. Say the first thing that comes into your head when you look at one of those pictures. Well, that's how they make those pictures. They get a paper bag and they put any photo on it. And then they scrunch up the bag and then keep taking a photo every time they scrunch it. They take a different photo every time and it looks different every time. That's how they make those photos, I imagine. Well, they probably don't. Probably nobody's ever thought of doing it that way before. I'm just saying they could. I'm not saying they should. I'm not saying anyone ever will or that I'll become an entrepreneur and start doing it myself. The only reason I'm proposing that as a way to do it And I'm not even proposing it. I'm just saying it as an illustration of how the cigarette packaging on cigarette bags works these days. They put a picture on the front of the bag. Someone comes up to the counter and say, "Can I have a pack of cigarettes, please?" And I say, "Certainly, you can have a pack of cigarettes." But if you say, as you've just said to me, "Cat, can I have a pack of your finest cigarettes?" That's a brand. I can't do that. I'm sorry. And the cat says, "Oh, I think you're confused. I think you're thinking that I've asked for the brand Tesco Finest, the supermarket own brand. No, I just said your finest cigarettes." And the barman says, "Yes, that's a brand. There's a brand called," at least there used to be. There probably still is, but I'm not allowed to say whether there is or not. That would be against the law. But let's say supposedly there might be a brand called Finest Cigarettes. And if that's the case, you've either inadvertently or advertently asked for them, and I can't do that. You have to just say cigarettes. And now, do you want the low tar, or do you want the extra low tar, or do you want the concrete ones? And the cat says, "Just give me whatever I'm allowed to have." What is a cat allowed to have in the bar? And the barman says, "You can have some cigarettes and a glass of water. Will that do?" Yeah. And the cat says, "I could have sworn I came in here every week for at least the past 7 or 8 months since the podcast came back. And also, up until 7 years ago, I came in here many hundreds of times before that and asked for a pint of Guinness and I got it, no problem." Well, I say no problem here. You often spend minutes and minutes dilly-dallying and we usually get lost in some conversation or something. And half the time we forget we're even in a bar. But no, I was certainly allowed to order a pint of Guinness. And the barman says, "Well, you haven't ordered a pint of Guinness. And if you don't order a pint of Guinness, I'm not allowed to say to you that Guinness exists. I'm not allowed to have a menu in here anymore. I'm not allowed to say what we sell in here. Not even, it's like what they have in betting offices now. If you go down the street in this country nowadays, you pass a lot of shops that you can't see through the window. The window is just covered in a big poster and it's a picture of a horse. And only the people who know what that premises is know what it is. It's a betting office. People go in there to place bets, but they're not allowed to make it look like a nice place that you go into and have a nice sit down. It's supposed to look just anonymous from the outside. And it's pretty much the same now with these bars. Well, not exactly the same, but if you come in here and you don't know what a bar is or what we sell, I'm not allowed to tell you, cat. And the cat says, "Well, I do know what you sell. You sell Guinness. I'll have a pint of your finest Guinness, please." And the man behind the bar says, "No, sir, there's no brand called Finest Guinness. You could ask for a Guinness, though. I think you can still ask for a Guinness. You could probably, just to be safe, just to be future-proof, you should probably just say a pint of Irish stout." And then the cat will say, "Is that not in breach of EU competition laws? Do I not have to just say stout from wherever you get it?" And the barman says, "Oh, that's a good point. A pint of my finest Guinness. Isn't that right, cat?" And the cat says, "Fuck off. Go fuck yourself, Christ's sake." And the cat says, "No, cat doesn't need to say anymore, because when you say fuck off, you've said it all. It's the perfect expression of everything you want to say, so you don't have to say any more after that." And the barman says, "Oh, I agree. It's an excellent phrase. It's very useful. Although there's such a thing as overusing it. You can weaken it by overusing it, don't you agree?" And the cat says, "I suppose you can. So anyway, can I have cigarettes, please?" And the barman says, "Certainly, sir. Here's some cigarettes." And the cat says, "Thank you. What do I do with them?" And the barman says, "Oh, I hope you're expecting me to show you how to do it." And the cat says, "Yes, please. When I go into the bank and say, 'Can I have a bank account, please?' they show you how to use the screen now to get your account stuff in order. So when I come in here, yes, I expect you to show me how to smoke. Please show me how to smoke." And the barman says, "No, I'm not going to show a cat how to smoke." And the cat says, "Why in the name of Christ not? You've sold me cigarettes. What am I supposed to do? Shove them up my arse? Resell them illegally on the street to some dog? I'm not going to do business with some dog just because my barman, who I've known for many years incidentally, and had many fine conversations with, doesn't want to show me how to smoke. So I'm supposed to go and just sell these on the black market to some dog in the street. Every dog in the street can buy cigarettes off me, but I can't ask my friend the barman to show me how to smoke." And the barman says, can't show you how to smoke, but I can. You can try to smoke, and I can, if you're doing it the correct way, I can just grunt for yes, you're doing it the correct way, and grunt twice for you're not doing it the right way. And the cat says, I suppose that could work. Okay, so let me see. I'll shove the white end into my mouth first. And the barman grunts twice. And the cat says, okay, I'll put it the other way. And the barman grunts once. And then he says, oh, do I set myself on fire now? And the barman says, I can't answer that, sir. That's a question. I can only grunt as you do stuff. And even that, I'm not even doing that. I'm a bit worried now because what I'm doing is being described on a podcast. This is evidence. This is going to be a big piece of evidence. It's being stored away, Everything that's recorded on here is stored away on archive.org forever. It's going to be a permanent record of this crime you're making me commit here. Cat. And the cat says, oh, I suppose you're reasonable to worry about that. I tell you what, how about you just give me a pint of your finest Guinness? And the barman says, here you go. And the cat says, that's great, thank you. And wait a minute, did you have that ready already? And the barman says, yes, it's a reheat. And the cat says, what the fuck is a reheat? And the barman says, well, when you're going to a fast food outlet here, after you go to the pub, after you have your 6 pints of Irish stout, you go into a chipper and you say, can I have some chips and a burger, please? And they have the chips ready suspiciously quickly because it's a reheat. They just put the chips back in the pan and reheat them. Well, it's like that, except it's with Guinness. I reheated the Guinness. Now, I know it's not cooked Guinness. Well, no, actually, that's not true. Beer goes through a process that's not dissimilar to cooking, if I remember rightly. I don't know very much. I've never been in a brewery, but I do know my father used to make home brew, and the start of the process was getting a big pot and putting it on the cooker for a couple of hours. It was filled up with water and God knows what else from a homebrew kit. So there's definitely cooking involved. I know the end product isn't hot, but you can reheat it and then let it cool down. I'm not saying you reheat it for the purpose of drinking it hot. No, you put it back in the pot. I suppose rebrew it in a way, at least. Like you do with bread. Bread is already cooked, but you put it in the toaster just before you eat it. That's partially recooking it. But still, there are people who are happy to eat toast cold. That's bread that's being recooked partially and then allowed to cool down. And that's exactly what I'm doing with your Guinness, cat. Although now that you mention it, no, it's not. I don't do any of that. I'm just saying that's a thing that could be made to sound logical. And the cat says, I suppose that's true. I suppose that's true. And the barman says, how are you getting on with the smoking? And the cat says, oh, I'm over that now. I'm just going to cram some Guinness down my gullet and just forget about the smoking thing. I'll probably sell these to a dog somewhere. Do you know any dogs who would buy some cigarettes? You probably don't. And the barman says, I probably do, but I don't allow them in here. So they don't get to buy cigarettes in here. I don't let dogs in here to my bar. It'd be a health and safety nightmare for one thing. Especially if they're smoking, that's going to make it even worse. Can you imagine a smoking dog in a bar, running around with cigarettes all over his face, probably spilling them everywhere on the carpet, probably start a fire, and then licking everyone, and then licking the cigarettes, and then licking... I don't even want to think about what a dog would do in here in my bar. And the cat says, do you know I've been licking myself for 80% of the time you've been talking here? I've been licking myself on your bar counter. And the barman says, yes, I do, but you're doing it to clean yourself. A dog is just going around putting spit on everything. That's gross and disgusting. Gross and disgusting. And anyone who would let one of those dog people into their bars shouldn't be allowed to have a bar license. They shouldn't. That's not to say they shouldn't be allowed to have a business. They should run a kennel or something, not necessarily in a downtown premises like this, because that's taking up good retail or a restaurant space. No, they should do it out in some warehouse somewhere out in the country lane. Anyway, on with the show. And the cat says, what do you mean on with the show? And the barman says, I mean, that's the end of this segment. It's time to move on from this segment. And the cat says, oh, I suppose that's fair enough. I suppose that's fair enough. And the barman says, it isn't really though, is it? It's a bit stupid. And the cat says, why do you say that? And the barman says, we're characters in the story. It's rather gimmicky having the characters announced that it's the end of the segment and on with the show, isn't it? That's like you're watching some sitcom on the television and one of the characters turns to the camera and says, oh, we'll be back after this break. That's just stupid, isn't it? And the cat says, have you heard this podcast before? And the barman says, what's a podcast? And the cat says, it's like a cigarette. And the barman says, in what way is it like a cigarette? And the cat says, I don't know. I just thought I'd say that and see if it would go somewhere. It doesn't seem to have gone anywhere, does it? And the barman says, no. And the cat says, will we stop talking now? And the barman says, yes, but only long enough to fold this segment away and start a new one. And the cat says, which of us belched incidentally just now? And the barman says, I don't know. Maybe it was one of the extras. And the cat says, why would there be extras in a fictional story about two cats in a bar? And the barman says, you not wonder who all those people are around us here, drinking merrily and pissing and doing whatever else they do. And the cat says, no, I think we've run this into the ground now. In fact, we've run this into the ground long before this, so they won't even hear this ending. So you can just stop recording it now. Today's episode of Into Your Head, it's well underway now. It's well underway, although I've only made about 15 minutes. The going is slow. Isn't that what they say on racetracks? They say the going is slow today. Horses are getting trapped in the mud. It's like quicksand, except they're not going down quite that far. Horses don't need to sink down into the ground like quicksand for it to be going badly. In fact, most of these horses, they're well capable of breaking all their legs before they even reach the surface of the ground. Anytime you see one of those horse races like the English Grand National, they're famous for having horses fall and break their legs. Those things have to be put down. Well, you notice they always break their legs before they don't go any further down than the surface of the ground before they break their legs. If they were to sink further into the ground, that wouldn't add anything extra to their. In fact, it would probably ease the pain a bit. A bit of mud would act as a makeshift splint for whatever bone they're broken. Maybe ease the pain for a while. Be a bit like if you have a toothache and you manage to fill the cavity up with something to ease the pain for a while. They still have to be put down. All I'm saying is that the soft ground isn't going to break their bones any more than they're already broken. They're well capable of breaking their bones on the way down from wherever they are in the air when they fall, from there down to the ground. Because a lot of the time they'll be up in the air. They'll be jumping over. Did they do that in the Grand National? I don't know. But there's horsey things where they make them jump over fences. They say, there's a fence. It's a little short bit of fence in the middle of the track. You're going to jump over that. Now, I know you could just go around it, and that's what we humans would do if it was us running. No, we want you to go over it, jump over that fence. And the horse, of course, if it could talk, it would say, what in the name of Christ is wrong with you? Firstly, if it's a short bit of fence that's in the middle of an open track, that's not a fence at all. There's not even a gate. That's like saying if you see a little bench in the middle of a park that's made of bricks and concrete, you don't call that a wall. You do not. It's not a wall because it doesn't separate anything from anything else. You can just walk around it. If you can just walk around it, it's not a wall. Although maybe now that I think about it, when I was a child, every school had a wall at the front. You had an exit that was for pedestrian children. There was a little gap in the wall with steps going up to it. So you'd go up 3 steps and through the little gap at the top of the wall, then down the other side. The idea being that it would slow you down so you wouldn't run straight out onto the road. Now, I suppose that would count as a gate or an opening of sorts, and it would still count as a wall because it's just got a little gap in it. The wall is still there. And basically, it's a stairs going up one side of the wall and down the other. But if you put that on a racetrack, you'd expect the horse to go up the steps and then through the little gap and then down the other side. That's just basically a hill. That's just a hill, and not even a natural one. It's an artificial hill. What's the difference between a natural hill and an artificial hill? Here's a question for you. You see a volcano, that's just doing the exact same thing as a landfill is doing. If your volcano was spewing crap up out of the middle of it and then it's going down the outside for a few thousand years and then it settles down and becomes a mountain, that's doing the same job as your landfill dump. You're just dumping stuff into it and then you're turning it into a hill. Now, which of those is better? Getting rid of all your rubbish and you're putting it in the ground, out of sight and out of mind, and turning it into a nice hill, whatever shape you like. The volcano thing, you don't even get to use that until it's baked and cooled down. A volcano is useless for millions of years until it settles down and it becomes a normal hill. At least a landfill dump, you get to use it continuously as a civic amenity for dumping crap into and onto. How many workers does your average volcano employ during the thousands of years that it's been constructed? 0. That's how many. 0. Unless they're rescuers rescuing some fella off it. I watched the thing the other day about a fella who went for a walk up the base of a volcano. He left his car in the car park and thought, I'm just going to go up here for 20 minutes. I'll go up and take some photos. I won't bring a bottle of water with me. I'll leave my phone in the car because there's no signal anyway. I'll just go up here in a t-shirt at 7 o'clock in the evening. And he got lost for about 3 days. Nearly died. They're the only people who go up volcanoes. And the people who rescued him the people who rescued him turned out to be just a load of tourists in a helicopter. There were helicopters flying out over the volcano several times a day. Eventually, one of the tourists spotted him out of the plane and said, that fella looks like he's got a problem. He's sitting there looking like he can't move or he's broken something or he's lost. I don't think it's normal, is it, for people to walk up volcanoes? Why would a normal tourist like me be in a helicopter unless it's unsafe to be on the ground on the volcano? So no, clearly people aren't supposed to be on the volcano. So that would imply there as well, by the way, that all the other helicopters full of tourists that passed him over him for 3 days, they look down and they say, oh, look, there's a fella walking down the volcano looking lost. I'm sure that's perfectly normal. Maybe you just can't afford to go in a helicopter. I would argue that a landfill dump is a lot better than that. I've never heard of anyone. I've watched episodes and episodes of this program on YouTube. It's called something like I Shouldn't Be Alive. It's had that fella on the volcano. It's had a load of people getting lost at sea or people getting lost in mountains and things and deserts and jungles. There's not been one person lost on a landfill site, I can tell you. And there's not been one person had to go out and rescue anyone who was lost on a landfill site. Something to get lost a lot on is canyons. It's usually you Americans, you seem to be very good at getting lost in canyons. You go down into your canyon for a walk and then you get lost. You think, oh Christ, where am I? You realise there's little canyons that branch out from the main canyons. Sometimes you have to find your sub-canyon because that's the corridor that leads back to wherever your car is. People have trouble finding them. They get stuck down these canyons and invariably one of them breaks a leg or something and they run out of water. For half of the programme they're worrying about the fact that they're dehydrating. And then it rains and they say, oh Christ, then we have to worry about it raining or we're going to get wet. We're going to catch our death from cold. They're never fucking happy. We don't have canyons anywhere else in the world as far as I know. My only knowledge of canyons and rocky places like that is from the Roadrunner and Coyote cartoons. There's no rocks. Oh, maybe Breaking Bad. They have red rocky stuff. I don't know if they have canyons. They haven't really had any use for a canyon in the storyline. But they do have use for a big rocky area that may well have canyons in it. It's like a desert, except it probably is a desert. It's a desert full of rocks instead of just sand. So when I was a child, we thought there was 3 types of ground that you can get lost in. There's a desert that's full of sand and cactuses and imaginary water pumps when you get thirsty that disappear when you approach them. Then there's swamps that have quicksand in them that you disappear into and never seen again. And then there's the jungle. It's full of cats, but not the nice kind, and they eat your face off. And you get lost as well. It's very hard to find your way back out of a jungle. Very hard. which I don't understand. I watch a lot of stuff about people getting lost in deserts where they say the land has no features, so it's really hard to navigate your way out. But a jungle is full of features, and they claim to have the same problem. A jungle, there's trees everywhere you look, there's formations of plants, there's all sorts of things. You just go, oh, I went up to that tree and then turn right, and then I go that way. You should be able to remember what way you got into the jungle and follow your way out again. Unless the jungle grows so quickly that when you go in for a walk, a nice innocent little Sunday afternoon walk in the jungle for an hour or two, and then you turn around to go back in your car, everything's grown several feet by then, so it all looks different. Is that possible? I wouldn't have thought it was possible. Or maybe they're just afraid of all the big cats. I suppose that's possible. A big cat that eats your face off. I don't know. Can they not just... I don't know what I'm going to say. Can they not just... So I feel like I should say something like, can they not just... and then suggest something. I don't have anything to suggest. I've no suggestions today for what people who get lost in jungles should have just done. I've no suggestions. I skipped the jungle episodes of those survival programs. I don't like the jungles at all. Can't say they're not interesting because there's plenty of stuff going on in them. There's snakes and animals and things that'll kill them. No, it's just no interest to me. A jungle is just a gardening program that's got out of hand. And it's been out of hand for some time. And you're going in for a walk in it like it's some sort of a park. No, go for a walk in the garden. Gardens exist for a reason. A garden is a thing that's been cut out of a jungle that's been tamed already, so you can enjoy a nice walk in it. Now, if you're a gardener, of course, you'll want something that's not being tamed because you want to tame it yourself from scratch. Well, even then, at least clear out an opening first. Get some landscapers in to clear out a big hole in the jungle where you can start your garden. And fence it off, maybe put down some poison to keep the animals away. Do I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about? I sometimes worry about that.
Are you going into your head?
No. I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, oh Christ. You're thinking, Jesus, holy Christ on a popsicle stick. And you're thinking, oh, I know he only says Jesus. He doesn't say other religions because he's afraid he'll offend someone. Well, no, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. It just happens. Or it's brought up saying the word Jesus Christ, and then later, or it's brought further up saying the word Jesus Christ. And you think, why doesn't he say Allah Christ on a popsicle stick? Or why doesn't he say the fat fella with the meditation? Why doesn't he say, oh, Buddha? Why doesn't he say Buddha Christ on a popsicle stick or something like that? Well, does that sound right to you? Does that sound like a swear, saying Buddha Christ? It doesn't to me. It sounds like a stupid diversion on a podcast, perhaps. But you can't force those things. If I ever find myself saying Buddha Christ in the middle of a segment here, I'll be quite happy to continue wherever it leads me. And I certainly won't censor myself. But no, you can't force these things. You can't say, oh, I need to stop just saying Jesus Christ. I need to say other Christ for other religions as well. And not worry about offending other religions. That's what you're thinking. Well, fair enough. I'll take that on board. There is a segment in this show, an innocent little story about a fictional child who wonders why, if she can't see her own face, because she can't see the inside of her own face because the way faces are designed. So why should other people be able to see her own face? So she wants her face covering. And it's suggested that she wants to do it in the style of the balaclava worn by the Irish Republican Army, a terrorist organisation. And that's a perfectly innocent little thing. And there's people going to be listening to that thinking, oh, is that about religious people who wear face coverings? Well, no, it isn't. Unless you count the IRA as religious. Because you Americans all think the thing in Northern Ireland was all about Catholics versus Protestants. So the IRA are all holy religious people. They all have face coverings. Half of them are nuns and the other ones are priests, but they wear face coverings in the form of balaclavas because that's what the IRA wore. You're reading too much into that. It's an innocent little comical tale made up as I go along. If I wanted to offend, I would just say, you're a cunt. And if I really wanted to offend, I would say who I'm talking to when I say you're a cunt, because I don't really want to offend. I don't know my foreign religions at all. I barely know our home religion. I was brought up in a Catholic school. We learned how to eat a round bit of bread that tasted nothing like bread to me. And they said, this is the body of Jesus. And if you're a grown up, you get to drink his blood as well. Most of us never got to drink his blood. When you were about 8 or 9 years old, you got to eat the blessed bit of round wafer thing every week at Mass. And then you saw some people, maybe the altar boys or some of the people who were helping to hand out the bread, they got to have a taste of the wine from the chalice. And we were told, this is wine. Now you can eat a bit of Christ's body there. But wine is expensive. We don't give that to everyone. I presume that was the issue. We don't give that to everyone. And you'd see the priest, he'd take a sip of the wine and then he'd wipe the side of the cup with a napkin thing and then he'd hand it to someone else and they'd take a sip out of it. And then they didn't wipe. The priest was dressed in all these white cloths, so he just tore a bit off his costume and he used that as a napkin. The lay ministers who hand out the bread at Mass, they weren't dressed in all these white cloths and things. They were dressed in ordinary clothes. Well, in their Sunday best probably. But you can't tear a bit off your suit or your blazer and use that as a napkin. Maybe they used a handkerchief that they had in their pocket, which that sounds disgusting to me. Even if it was a perfectly clean one, they keep that in their pocket. Presumably they changed their handkerchief before they left. So there had been a dirty handkerchief in that pocket, which they've put in the laundry just before they left, and they put a clean one in. And now they're using that to wipe the chalice. No, I don't want any of that wine after all, thank you. No, thank you very much. That's offensive to me. That's offensive. Go around handing out your germs in a cup. Don't do that to people. I've already had a major fatality. A fella who you worshipped, he ended up getting nailed to a cross. And then he died. And that's the family left without a child, had someone without a father, and without I don't know what he had in the end. Did he have children? I don't know. You're probably not allowed to say he had children, are you? You're probably supposed to say, oh, at the age of 30, he left his carpentry job, still a bachelor, and he had no children, and he'd never been on a date other than with the 12 fishermen. There's a bit in the Bible where he goes, you're fishers of men now. It's terrible, terrible grammar. He goes, you're fishers of men now. Or he says, you're fishermen of men. I don't know. We were told at school that he said, you're fishers of men now. You're not fishers of fish anymore. You're fishers of men. But then the next week in religion class, we were told that one day he was having a gathering, doing his little preachy thing. The crowds had been there a while and they're all hungry. They needed some lunch. There was 2 loaves of bread and a couple of fishes and he magicked them up. He was able to make enough fish and bread for everyone to eat. And suppose that makes sense. He'd taken 12 experienced fishermen out of there. There was presumably a fishing village whose whole livelihood depended on the sea, and he just took them away. So it's no wonder they were out of fish. They were out of fish because he took away all the fishermen out of their jobs. He said, you leave that now, you're going to join the priesthood or something now. One of you is going to disown me or do something mean to me while I'm on the cross or something, or you're basically going to get me killed. The rest of you are going to be fine, but you're all going to be fishers of men now. So I'll magic up some fish if people get hungry. I suppose that's fair. Did he take the bakers out of their jobs as well? Because you had to magic up bread as well. They were available at night to do the baking. I suppose you're probably thinking, if they're going to be going to an event during the day, they're going to take the night off the night before. They're not going to stay up all night baking bread. So if the bakers take the day off, nobody has bread that day. That's what it is it? You're probably thinking, no, you fucking idiot. They make the same amount of bread as usual. They have other bakers there. They make as much bread as usual. But there was too much demand that day because there was hundreds of people gathered at some event that Jesus was running. There wasn't enough bread for that. There was enough bread for the normal stock that the shops need on a normal day in a small village, which isn't very much. I used to live near a garage in a Thai that had a small shop nearby. Hardly anyone went in there for their shopping, so a lot of the time they just buy 1 loaf of each type of bread, and that was enough. So if more than 3 people came in that day, they were out. But it wasn't unreasonable. They were catering for their average level of demand and not causing waste. So it's completely reasonable. So I hope I've set that to rest now. Anyway, on with the show. You join me at a tremendously exciting moment. It's the closing segment of today's episode of Into Your Head podcast goodbye. So goodbye. That's it now. That's how an end segment works. You just say goodbye and that's it. It's not complicated. People on other shows think, oh, I have to come up and close up shop now and do it now. I'll say, thank you to our sponsors, those people who do the audiobooks who've never heard of us because they just click on a thing somewhere saying, I want to have an affiliate link. I'd like to say, no, our friends over at that audiobook place, thank you very much to them for sponsoring us once again this week. I had a nice long chat with the audiobook marketing fella this morning. He rang me up at 6 a.m. and he said, are you doing the podcast again today? I just want to say good luck, wish you all well, break a leg. We'll have a listen to it before it comes out. And I hope you sell loads of audiobooks. They do not. They go and click on a thing somewhere that says join this affiliate program like 8 million other podcasts, including this one many years ago. For we're not doing that shit anymore. We are not going to sell our souls to the... Well, as it happens, I am a very frequent customer of that audiobook place. I read a lot of audiobooks nowadays. And as it happens, incidentally, if you are a user of that app, you can subscribe to this podcast in that Audible app. Give it stars and reviews. So please do. If you happen to be an Audible user, please subscribe to this podcast in that app. It's looking a little silly if it's just me and my wife subscribing to it. Because people get this podcast everywhere else. They don't get it there for some reason. So no, people on other shows think you have to come along and do an ending. Is the end of the show. We're all going to die now. Except, no, they don't do that. That's Walking Dead. They go, we're all going to die now. The only thing we don't know is in what order. We're all going to die at some point over the next 13 years or so. Except the ones who get the spin-off, they'll die over the following 7 or 8 years. But then they'll have made new friends during the spin-off, and those friends, if they become popular enough, some of them will get to live into a further spin-off. And then the actors, of course, they don't die at all. They get to live on into eternity because they got lucky. That's the thing about these actors. What am I shit? Okay. Anyway, good morning.